Hey guys, so Pride Month almost over. I'm just getting in right at the end. Typical procrastination on my part. No one should be surprised. But before it's over, I really wanted to share my favorite LGBT comic books and graphic novels. So I won't say that I'm an expert. I have read a lot of LGBT work, but I haven't read everything. So I'm sure if you're watching this, there is a good chance that I'm leaving out one of your favorites, which you should absolutely recommend to me to read. But just so you know, I'm just recommending my favorites that I've read so far, which is usually about all of them, but still, it's not my top forever, it's just my favorite that I've read. So here we go, my favorite LGBT books. All right, so let's start it off. So, of course, my Moose. My dog is so loud. So of course I can't start talking about LGBT books, my favorite at least, without talking about Tillie Walden. She continues to be one of my favorite writers of all time. She only has 3 graphic novels put out, but she does have some shorter, I guess like short graphic novel story-ish books as well. But she's most well known for Spinning, which is a memoir of hers about her growing up and dealing with her sexuality, kind of juxtaposed with her ice skating career. And there's a Sunbeam, which is this like sci-fi epic, and Are You Listening? So those are all published through First Second. Tillie is wonderful. She's a wonderful new voice in comic books. She's fairly young. I think she's like 23, which I always forget because I read it and I always think that these comic book creators are, you know, my age or older. But she has so much promise. She's done so well, and I love everything she puts out. I'm a diehard Tillie fan, and I can't wait to follow her throughout the rest of her career. Just absolutely check it out. She always has just wonderful LGBT focus in her books. You know, diverse characters in on a Sunbeam. I just love her. I love her style. Next, of course, Sunstone. Sunstone by Shep and Sedgwick. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right or not, Shep, and I'm sorry. Sunstone means so much to me. It's this beautiful, beautiful book. It's written and illustrated by Shepin and his wife. It's about these 2 women that meet each other through an online forum, and they're into BDSM. So this is an 18+ erotica book. Keep that in mind going into it. But it's honestly so beautiful because really under that premise, under BDSM premise, under an erotica as far as comic book premise, that can be taken so many ways. And, you know, I know that for a lot of like lesbians or, you know, women loving women, people in the community, they can be kind of turned off when they see that like there's a man behind a story such as this, but he does a fantastic job. It just feels like the most honest, beautiful relationship between these 2. And it's the most accurate lesbian depiction, I think, because these 2 women, despite being in this very intense, you know, kink relationship with one another, are constantly doubting whether or not the other one likes them. And if that doesn't speak lesbian, I don't know what does. Strangers in Paradise. Oh my gosh, I have the book right here. Terry Moore. I'm so thankful for this book because Strangers in Paradise is this very long-running series by Terry Moore, written and illustrated by him, self-published under Abstract Comics. And it reads like a kind of 90s sitcom, and which I think just really makes me enjoy it even more. I love this story. I love the story between these 2 women. And not only do I love them and their kind of like very, very slow burn relationship, but also, you know, body representation that looks like my own in comics like these is still rare now. You know, I'm always thankful for the amount of like push for diversity that we're getting in comics now. But I haven't seen a body like mine, especially tied to a bisexual woman. So I feel such a deep connection to this book. Wonderful book. I super recommend it. It is a slow burn, so this relationship built between these 2 women does take some time to get to. Heads up. Now, I've got to talk about Mariko Tamaki. Number 1, if you aren't reading any Mariko Tamaki, you haven't read any Mariko Tamaki, you've got to fix that. I'm so glad that she's on so many DC books right now. I think she's absolutely fantastic. I've liked everything I've read by her. I definitely have to speak about Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me. This is published by First Second. This will be the last First Second book I mention in this video because to me they're one of the best publishers pushing those types of books. I know I can always go to them for that content. Wonderful. It plays out kind of like a typical teen, almost like, I wouldn't say rom-com, but it's a typical teen movie, because you have, you know, your main character, and she's fallen in love with Laura Dean, who's her girlfriend and this like player. She's always kind of like dating the main character, and then breaking up with her and then getting back with her again. And it's just this cycle of this kind of toxic relationship between these two women. But it's a lot about this main character kind of going through that and learning more about herself through the end. Wonderful and fantastic art. So good. Next is a manga recommendation at My Brother's Husband. I know a lot of people mention this book. It's very, very good. It's about this American man who goes to visit his late husband's twin brother in Japan, because he wants to go see where his husband was from and learn more about his family and where he grew up. And so he goes to stay with his late husband's twin there, and that twin is a single father, and he has a young daughter, and it's just learning about his brother in a way that he didn't really know, because in Japan it's talking about homosexuality is a very different reality than it is in the US. Although, you know, still dealing with a lot of the same prejudices that you would recognize here. It's such a neat story. And, you know, coming from someone who has a degree in Japanese and who studied in Japan, getting to see those two worlds of mine intersect was so interesting, because he did such a good job talking about it. Because you have the twin brother who didn't understand that part of his brother, you know, didn't understand that part of his life. And he has, you know, his young daughter is very interested in her uncle's husband, right? And just very innocently. And it's just really beautiful to see how they navigate that relationship and how they find solace in one another through kind of mourning this person, this shared person in their lives. Super recommend. Going forward, Bloom, published by First Second. It's a great young gay graphic novel about this this younger boy whose family owns a bakery, and he doesn't like working there, but a cute new boy comes to work at that bakery, and they kind of fall in love. And so it's him dealing with his feelings for this boy while also dealing with this kind of weighted responsibility of being expected to take on his family's bakery when that's not really his interest. Super cute. That one feels very teen rom-com. It's a great read, wonderful art, and again, published by First Second. And of course, I've got to talk about Check Please. Check Please started as a webcomic. I'm so sorry, I cannot pronounce her name, but I will put it here on the video. She started Check Please as a webcomic, and then eventually it's been published, I think by First Second. If not, I'll put it here, somewhere in this video. And she's also a Black female writer, so if you're looking to expand your horizons right now, especially amidst everything, and really trying to pursue Black creators in comic books, especially Black female creators, this is a great person to go to. It's a great book to read. It's about this hockey team in a college, and you have, you know, your main character Biddy, who likes baking, and he falls for the captain of the team, who's really stoic and cool. And there's comic book references throughout, like two of the guys at the party dress up as Booster Gold and Blue Beetle. It's very cute and heartwarming and fun in all the perfect ways. So cute. I know I've been saying everything is cute, but get over it. It's very good. Check Please. Prince and the Dressmaker. Oh my gosh. It's so good. I love Prince and the Dressmaker. It will soon be a musical as well. So this is also published by First Second. And what's so great about this is that you have this young dressmaker. She's very poor. She works at she's grown to be a seamstress. And on the side, she's been making dresses for the prince, because the prince likes to go out and dress as a woman during certain nights. And they through her working with him, they developed this very close relationship. And it's very interesting too, because not only do they have this relationship with another that's a friendship and also romantic, the prince also learns that, you know, and I'm using the he pronoun because I'm not entirely sure whether or not that shifts throughout the book, but he learns that he's comfortable dressing up as a woman and a man, and I think that's the first time I've seen gender fluidity displayed so comfortably in a comic book, and I think in a way that like even younger kids could understand. You know, I think a lot of people think, you know, I can't show this to my kid, this story, because the content is too mature for them, or they're not ready to have this conversation. But a lot of kids are already battling with that conversation in themselves when they don't feel masculine, don't feel feminine. So having that book that's in a sort of fairy tale-ish form, that just delivering that content to them in a way that they can really absorb it in a friendly way is wonderful. And the art's great, and I can't wait to see this as a musical. I really hope it does well. The 5th, James Tynion's The Woods. I only just learned that James Tynion's bisexual, and I feel just betrayed that I never knew. But props to James. That's so cool. Thank you for the bisexual representation in comic books. Keep it going, especially as a man. I don't see that often. The Woods is an interesting one for me to recommend because it doesn't fit the same theme as the other ones I've been talking about, right? Where the other ones really rely heavily on romance. But The Woods it's a horror series about the students in their school, and something happens and they get uplifted to this woods area. And it's just their school, and they're completely taken away from like the realm that they've known, and so it's the kids trying to navigate this, and very kind of like Lord of the Flies, or you know, them having to develop their own society while being there on their own, this new strange world, and meeting other people that are also kind of displaced from time and space. And it has a great wide variety of characters, and great LGBT representation. Definitely check it out. More for a second. So Snapdragon, have to talk about Snapdragon. It's about this young girl who meets this kind of like what she thinks to be an old witch in the woods, who she goes to ask for help. And they kind of get this wacky adventure together. We're through Snapdragon working with this older woman because she's asked her to teach her like spells and taxidermy. We're also introduced to other wide variety of LGBT characters in a very neat way. And I would tell you more, but I don't want to ruin it. But just trust me, you won't regret it. Please check out Snapdragon. Please. Kiss number 8. So Kiss number 8, I think was probably my favorite graphic novel of last year, at least in terms of non-Big 2. Kiss number 8 is just your typical girl realizes she's gay or bisexual or queer, likes other girl, it doesn't work out. She's dealing with it with her parents and learns more about herself as she kisses other people. It spoke to me so strongly, and I remember reading it in the middle of the night and just crying. Because I didn't have those stories growing up. And so to read these graphic novels about these, you know, young people dealing with those situations and coming to love themselves speaks so much to me. And I'm so glad that's there. I'm so glad that, you know, younger versions of me today have access to that at such a way earlier age. And I'm glad that we all do, because I think they're just great books in general. Even if this is not your thing, even if you're not LGBT, I think you're still going to get something from these novels. They're very well written. They're wonderful stories. And again, I've said this before in this channel, but I think a lot of people that we know tend to stick to one type of comic book, you know, and they ignore graphic novels, or they ignore the young adult graphic novels, or all ages, thinking that, okay, this isn't for me. I'm going to go read Brubaker. Not discounting any of this, because I love all those comic books too, but I think, you know, you're missing out on a wealth of beautiful content that you could be consuming, especially because some of these are lighthearted or touching in a way that you wouldn't expect. I also want to give a shout out to Snotgirl. It's written by Brian Lee O'Malley, art by Leslie Hung. Brian Lee O'Malley wrote Scott Pilgrim. And it's funny talking about Scott Pilgrim because there's a lot of ways that had a lot of content that could be considered problematic now. But he's definitely grown so much. You can see that with Snotgirl. And I did not know Snotgirl was going to be a queer story when I got into it, but it's about Lottie, who is snotty, and she is an influencer and a model, and she meets this other beautiful girl and kind of falls for her, and that kind of does fall for her, and they're starting to date, but then there's also these other kind of really creepy things happen, like people dying or, you know, things being covered up, and you just get little snippets of that, and it's not done yet. It's only three trades in, but we're getting little pieces of that as we go. I can't wait to see how it all works out. Also want to talk heavy vinyl. Heavy vinyl, I don't see people talk about it as much as I do, but it's through Boombox. It used to be called Hi-Fi Fight Club before, you know, they had to change that because of the copyright issues with actual Fight Club, the movie and the book. Heavy vinyl is one of the first comic books I got into when I was getting into comic books. I remember being at the comic book store and just picking up floppies, which is a thing I do not do now. You guys know. I'm a trade waiter. I like collected editions. I don't pick up floppies, but at the time I did, back when it was Hi-Fi Fight Club, and I loved it. It's set in the 90s, set in a record store, so immediately I'm thinking High Fidelity, which is one of my favorite movies. And you have this main character going to work there, you know, has a crush on the girl that works there. I already know I'm into it, right? And she learns that they have a fight club and they're vigilantes. So she gets kind of like inducted into this, and it's very music heavy, very cool, super diverse cast of characters, great LGBT representation, love it. And I'm ending my top picks with my lesbian experience with loneliness. This is, I'll still call it a manga because it's from a Japanese creator, and it's actually biographical. It's a memoir about this woman's experience with being a lesbian and with being lonely, and also trying to make it as a mangaka. And she has a lot of depression. She has a lot of mental health issues, a lot of fighting with her mom, and just difficulty interacting with the world in general. As you see a lot of young Japanese people do and feel. And she starts to find ways to explore her sexuality in a very honest way that you don't see from a lot of Japanese creators, especially when it comes to their own life. You know, it's not common for a lot of Japanese people to be very, very honest and raw with those types of things. And so I very much appreciate her being that way, because I think, you know, her story is one that a lot of younger Japanese people probably need to hear, especially with all of the pressures that they face, you know. And her art is goofy and fun, and I really like it. So that was my quick and dirty of my favorite LGBT books. I know I have more than that, but I knew that this video would go on forever if I did. But feel free to shout in the comments below what your favorite LGBT books are. I'm always looking for new books to pick up, new creators to follow. I might do a follow-up to this if you guys are interested on my favorite LGBT comic book creators, because there are some that maybe aren't named or aren't really writing as many LGBT focused books, but I want to give some highlight too. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. Send me some recommendations. Let me know if anything I've talked about you've read and liked. And yeah, I hope you guys are staying safe, staying healthy, staying inside as much as possible. Please wear a mask. And you know, it's Pride Month, so think about, you know, donating to any number of wonderful foundations that are helping LGBT people and youth and black trans people right now, because, you know, it may be 2020, but these people are still struggling, and I'm so thankful for the amount of representation that we have now, but the fight still isn't over, right? There's still not acceptance everywhere, but I know that you all, people I've interacted with on the channel, have been really wonderful and so much more open than I could even hope that they would be. I'm so thankful to you all for being that. You guys are super cool. So I hope that you like this video, subscribe for future videos. Don't forget we have a Patreon through which you can support us, and also through which you get access to some extra content or some early content. as well as being able to vote for different things like reading orders or the Old Reading Reader Book of the Month, things like that. So I look forward to seeing you all again.